Can I ask you about Trump specifically? I actually respect how you kind of framed the whole situation. It doesn't sound like you are one of those blindly ignorant people. They're like, I just hate him and I don't like what... You actually gave him credit. You said he's a world-class demagogue, right? So there's sort of like a humble brag right there. But you know who he is, and you respect your enemy. You know, Pat's newest book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, you've chosen Trump as your enemy, whether that's vocal or not. You kind of laid out the top three caricatures of the type of person to run a campaign. I want to talk about the Trump voter. You know, as Bill Maher famously said, it's okay for you to hate Trump, but you can't hate the people that vote for him. So in my opinion, there's three types of voters that vote for Trump. There's I love my poorly educated people, you know, the Trump base, you know, millions of people that just, whether it's tribalism, whether it's instinctual, they're just like, that's my guy. You know, he said he's the middle finger to America, and rightfully so for some people, right? They've been screwed over in manufacturing. You talked about personal finance issues, paycheck to paycheck, all that. So that's number one. On the other side of the spectrum, you have maybe the donor class, the millionaires, the small business owners in some capacity that are, look, I'm just voting for tax reasons, you know, it's the economy stupid. So let's put those two on the separate wings. But then you have the majority of people, let's say it's 60% of the people of the 80 million votes or whatever to 76 million votes, who are like, just like, no, I don't like what's going on the left. I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, I want to raise my children in the right way. At the end of the day, Trump could say whatever he wants to say. Those people are going with him. And these are hardworking Americans. These are people who love America. They love freedom. They love democracy. So at what point are those people, like, they have a voice too? It's not like they are being gunned to their head, you have to vote for Trump. You know, you've been, with the Lincoln Project, very adamantly against Trump. What would you say to those people who... Essentially, you're trying to convince those types of people not to vote for Trump, but they're going to vote for him anyway. I mean, how do you handle that?
These people at some level are my parents. Okay. Right. So this is family. I was on the Trump bomber target list. I didn't get a bomb, but apparently when the FBI came to the house, I was at the top of the next batch. My parents still voted for him.
Your parents.
for Trump, right. So I don't hate the Trump voters. I love some of them very much. Here's what I would say to the many millions of people that are watching this that vote for Trump. I get it. I get the disdain, the corruption within the system. There's a painting in the Capitol of the United States. It's a painting of George Washington. And this is the moment that America functionally comes to life. In the painting, George Washington is in uniform. There's a chair there, and the chair is bigger than the others in the room. It's the throne that he will not sit on, and Washington lays his cloak over it. He will not be Caesar, and he bows to the Congress. He walks away from power twice. Our American civilization, our way of life is constructed around the assignment of power through the result of an election where lawfully people raise their hand, take an oath, and they're giving limited power for a limited period of time and never have the power to interfere with some basic rights. The first time Donald Trump said in 2015, the election results are only legitimate if I win, should have been a moment of a national timeout. I don't care if you're on the far left, you're on the far right. In this country, that's not how it works. And so over these years, we've seen the escalation of that to a moment where I think is in real danger. If I was running that Fox debate, my first question would have been, let's talk about how we're going to execute General Milley. Right? We're going to shoot him. We're going to hang him, poison him, gas him. What do you think? How are we going to shut down Comcast and MSNBC and NBC? I think, and I don't understand why not, because I have a very basic premise. I take everything that everyone says literally and seriously. Period. If you say you're running to seek retribution, to kill the Joint Chiefs of Staff, okay, we got a problem, right? What we share in common in this country is a lineage of defiance, of entrepreneurship, of pioneer spirit, of a defense of an idea. Served in the 101st Airborne. These are sacred things in this country, and there's no man who is above them. And so, in a choice between two flawed parties, two flawed people, I get it. But at this moment, as we come into the third decade of the 21st century, country's got real problems. It's got real opportunities. I personally think if you had $1 to invest anywhere in the world, you're a moron. If this is the place you don't put the dollar, this is the most competitive society on earth. But man, is our politics broken. And when you got a guy like Menendez, right, who comes out and you're like, okay, let's hear it, right? Let's hear it, right? And he's like, no, you don't understand, right? I had to sew the money into the jackets because of the old country. Right. I gotta be,
That's what they did about 60 years ago.
I gotta be ready. A country he wasn't born in. He's never been into, right? So it's like it's constant. And I get it. Joe Scarborough said this, like on Morning Joe the other week, and this is totally true. Mm-hmm. He said every single Democrat who comes on the air, 100% of them say on the air something completely different from what they say off the air regarding Biden. And here's the deal. It was exactly the same way with the Republicans about Trump in 2015 and 2016. And either way, both sides, the American people get this. They completely intuitively understand it's all bullshit. Whether it's Menendez in the old country, Dianne Feinstein passed away right before we came on air. I was actually talking to someone about this yesterday, right? Like the notion, this person who's a legitimately important figure, right, in American political history for women, how she came to how to power, completely stripped of her dignity in the last 5 years of her service, that this is what she'll be remembered for, is sitting up there with no faculties, no personal agency. So we have a massive problem. You have a belligerence in the media that you see assert itself every time someone says, well, 80% of the country doesn't want Trump or Biden. So there's a lot of brokenness. I understand it. But the issue with Trump that's front and center, it has to be, are the intimations towards violence, towards chaos, and the assassination baiting of a guy who spent his entire career wearing the cloth of the
quick follow-up. It would seem to me your biggest issue would be people clinging to power. Let me explain. Trump first and foremost, but you named names. You named Dianne Feinstein, clinging to power. She was clearly a vegetable, but she wouldn't step down. Bob Menendez, clearly corrupt, clinging to power, right? Mitch McConnell, 80 years old, can't even function, clinging to power. Your biggest fear is Donald Trump clinging to power. You used the George Washington example. He's not King George. He's not Julius Caesar. Go deep, go dark here for a second. He clings to power. Let's say he actually wins or even doesn't win this next election, but clings to power, assumes he wins. How dark could it possibly get? What's your biggest fear?
There's a plan. It's on the table by elements at the Claremont Institute that seek to really dissolve the functioning of the government, the deep state, as they call it, within 6 months. There is no deep state. There's dysfunction, there's bureaucracy, there's inefficiency.
Steve, there's no deep state.
No.
Come on, Steve.
No.
There's no deep state.
What is the deep state?
Okay, so what do you think when you think about what World Economic Forum Klaus Schwab is doing and his campaign Build Back Better being the same campaign, identical word as Biden's? What do you think about when you see what some of these ESG guys are doing? You know, you got these, State Street, Vanguard, Larry Fink, BlackRock. They own all these stocks, and these 88% of S&P 500 top 3 shareholders is their institutional money. And they're imposing their power over these CEOs to do what they need to do for, And now recently they're stepping away from it. There's a lot of people today that I know when you're sitting here going through some of this stuff, and I want to listen to you because I want to know where your motive is. I want to know where your frustration lies. And, I want to comment on a few of these things and then, give a question back to you. You said Trump being, he was raised with a father with money. His father bailed him out, gave him money and all this other stuff, right? I saw kids who grew up poor, and I saw kids who grew up with money. The kids that grew up with money had more temptations to do stupid things than the kids who grew up poor. Now, what do I mean by this? They're spoiled brats. They're annoying. They're obnoxious. They're always getting bailed out. They never get suspended. If they do, the dad comes in and buys it out. You're not going to see a kid with a rich dad getting, what's the word, not suspended, when you're getting kicked out of school, expelled. It's just not going to happen, right? You're going to get these things. So the way I see it with Trump is, here's a guy that had access to all the drugs, anything he ever wanted to do. He had access to all the alcohol, anything he wanted to do. He had access to all of it. And you mean to tell me this guy never did drugs? He never did alcohol? And with all the temptations of the money that his dad had, he takes whatever the dad gave him, whether it's nothing, $1 million, or $14 million. I've heard all these 3 numbers, right? Even if it's the $14 million that his dad gave him, you take that $14 million and you turn it into $2 billion, $3 billion, whatever the number is. Democrats will say it's closer to $2 billion. Some will say it's $3 billion. Let's say $2 billion, okay? You do that? How many kids do that? Not a lot of them. It's not easy to do. So for me, I understand the establishment thing, and then to come to today when you said something about, this guy got up on stage and he said, the only way the election will be accurate is if I win, right? Not if I lose. If I lose, the election is a fraud and da-da-da-da. Okay, fine, cool. Then the hypocrisy comes out is if he only said it and that was the issue, okay, what are you doing? Can't be saying something like this. Do you know how many videos were taken down for repeating what Hillary Clinton said in 2016, that the election was rigged? You know how many videos were taken down? 0. YouTube didn't take down any videos that they said 2016 election was rigged and Russia collusion. 0 videos. They all stayed up. Why? So think about the voter who, you're like, this voter, right? This voter is kind of like, you know what? F you. Okay, you want to do this? I don't like seeing people being taken advantage of. That voter is sitting there and saying, "I'm sorry, dude. I voted for." Let's just say a person says that they voted for Hillary. Okay, but she said the same thing Trump said. 3.5 years later, she funded it, and now we're supposed to sit there and say he's the bad character, not her. You want me to believe that? I think there's a big community as well. I guess what I want to bring back to you is, you know how typically it's like Republican versus Democrat? Okay, great. Then sometimes it's liberal policies versus conservative policies. Great. And then sometimes it's, anti-establishment versus establishment, right? And you said earlier when Trump was running, what Trump was able to do is bring a public issues that nobody was talking about. The drug issue or the border issue. Nobody was thinking about that. Boom, he put it front and center. Oh, damn, this is really an issue, right? He made a non-talked about issue a talked about issue. Then we're all looking at it and this guy's right. Let's build a wall. No one ever talked about building a wall. Let's build a wall. Why shouldn't we build a wall? We never thought about this. We should do this. Everyone should do that. So the part that gets me to question, I'm listening to you and I'm like, this guy sounds like a reasonable guy that he can reason. You can reason. You're sharp. There's a reason why all these guys have hired you over the years. And you say your parents voted Trump. They supported Trump even with the bomber. You had that list, whatever. Even your parents still voted for him. There has to be something deeper to get you guys. When I say you guys, you, Weaver, your partners, who at that time you're no longer with them. I know 2021 you resigned, but there has to be something where it got you guys to team up against this guy that's deeper than just, what he's talking about. There was a real, even the documentary, the 5-part documentary series that you guys, you guys hate this guy. You guys were not, you want to do whatever you could to destroy this guy from winning. Where did that come from?
Did you watch the documentary?
I watched the first episode, not all 5.
So first off, what the documentary shows when you watch the whole thing is that just because you are against Trump does not mean you are better than Trump. Because most of the people in that documentary are exactly the same people as Trump. In this moment, we see a vast Trump industrial complex. Lincoln Project, as it exists today, is part of it. It's a grift. When I founded it, did it, 85 cents of every dollar went into the program. Today, 93 cents on the dollar goes into the pockets of 3 people.
With
the lawyer, Rick Wilson and Reed Galen, right? In the name of democracy, right? So it's all
you guys are
bullshit.
not friends anymore.
I walked away from it as it blew up because of all of the integrity issues. I was the strategist. When you watch the whole documentary, really, it was funny. When that documentary came out, there was this enthusiasm because the number one thing that people want, and it wasn't, the Lincoln Project people weren't outliers. All these people want to be famous. Everyone wants to be famous, right? So the Lincoln Project in 11 months built a followership that was larger than the national parties, right? On social media, raises $100 million. Now, when this documentary comes out, none of the people who wanted to be famous want to talk about it. Right? I don't want to make a peep at it. What I said, right, when they were doing it, I said, I'm not going to kibosh it. If you guys want to do it, you can do it. All I'm saying is, you want to get famous? Careful, you don't get what you wish for. And that's exactly what happened. With Donald Trump, my entire life, Trump has been there. I feel like I know who he is. He's the guy who stiffs the working guy in Atlantic City. He's the guy who fucks the little guy over and over and over and over and over again. If you grew up in New Jersey, you followed Donald Trump's career, Trump is a con man and a grifter, in my estimation. I reject completely the notion that he's a successful businessman. He's a fraud. He was a TV character, a cultural figure who was able to, in a alignment of events, capture very narrowly the presidency running against another flawed character. I don't hate Donald Trump. I hate what Donald Trump stands for. I believe he is a threat to my country and to the American Constitution.
How?
He incited an insurrection that ended the peaceful transition of power. He called for violence and violence broke out. He has sustained for years now a lie about this stolen election. He's lied 35,000 times as president. And in the end, his lies are lies of authority that demand submission, that demand obedience. If you look objectively at the things Trump says, it is fascistic. It's fascism, not according to some liberal pundit, but according to what Benito Mussolini defines fascism as.
Be specific. How?
What Donald Trump is very specifically calling for is a consolidation of power around him as an individual and an expression of him as an individual as also being the state. What he does not seem to understand is the idea of the country, a pluralistic representative democracy. He doesn't seem to understand the virtue in the separation of powers, the dignity of the system, of human rights. Over and over again, he has fetishized autocratic leaders from Vladimir Putin to Xi Jinping, and so on and so forth. So over and over again, the rhetoric, the actions. Jared Kushner walked out of the White House and within 6 months took $2 billion in investment from the Saudi investment fund. One of the most corrupt administrations, if not the most corrupt in American history. A shattering of norms, talking to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about deploying the military against the American people in peaceful protests. The list goes on and on and on. In the end, we have somebody who's been indicted, facing 92 criminal counts for mishandling of classified information, a conspiracy in an election in Georgia. They're very, very serious charges. Democracy is threatened by this man, and it's threatened by cowardice, by people who didn't oppose him. I think this is important to understand. Every Republican, all of them, 100%, had my position on Trump. All of them. Every one of them got in line, except for like 6 of us.
There's no way in the world all of them had the same position as you did.
You go back to 2015.
Yeah.
Inside the Republican Party, the dominant position is Lindsey Graham saying accurately then, we get in line behind this guy, it'll destroy the Republican Party, which is what's going to happen one way or another at the end of the day. But people got in line supporting something that they had viscerally and adamantly opposed because they were moral cowards.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.